Tholin, 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 get that fusion golin. I don't know what I am singing. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here on the free-to-pause account, but honestly, it's not going to really matter for this particular video because we are going to be talking about Tholin Foulbeard, and we are going to be talking about the fusion. So a little bit later, I will be going over the Tholin Foulbeard. That's a wonderful name to say, very fast. We're going to be going over his fusion. We'll be going over his kits. We'll go over the schedule. We'll talk about the best way to strategize getting this dude. But I really think you should get him. And I just got to do a quick reminder of what he does. All right, so first of all, we actually get a chance to look at this dude finally. And yeah, he looks really, really cool. I don't know why they hid him for so long. Maybe that, I don't know. He looks cool. He's a cool-looking dwarf. The Polarium does a great job with this raid, does a great job with the visuals in general, especially the newer champions. So he's really good looking. That's great. Kit, not super complex, but very good. He's got an AoE attack that has a chance to place Weaken. If he places Weaken on everybody, he gets an extra turn. So not too bad. It is not a 100% chance ever, but it can be a 50% up to a 75% chance, depending on how well this is booked. And this could do some decent damage. I've seen a couple damage tests now, and his damage is very good. As far as damage goes, just raw damage, he appears to be slightly below where Thor is. Although, to be fair, the testing that was done with him generally does not rely on him getting extra turns on this weekend. So if he's getting extra turns with this hit, that may change the mechanics just a little bit. But again, this is never going to be guaranteed because you never know if somebody else is going to have weaken already, so you can't land it for that reason. And even if you're a 75% chance, that's still not a 100% chance. So this is not going to be very reliable, but it can add a little bit of extra damage. The A2 is attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit ignores 25% of the target's defense. It can ignore 50% if they're a boss or the Corrupted Alliance as well, and increases his attack and decreases the target's attack. Very good for long-term fights because this is basically going to ramp up his damage quite a bit. It does mean that the more attack you get on him, the more the balance is going to swing from Thor being better to him being better, because 50% additional attack, well, when you start with significantly more attack, you can scale that a lot better. So for high-end builds or builds with a lot more attack, he might end up being better than Thor. And to be fair, if you decide to build him without any accuracy because you're not worried about that weekend, well, we'll make sure that he doesn't have any other debuffs. I don't remember if he does. It doesn't look like he does, so if you don't build him with accuracy, you might actually be able to build him stronger than Thor for damage, purely just because you don't need that weekend. If you decide to give up that extra attack, you might be able to actually do more damage with him overall. The A3, very good damage dealing ability as well. Attacks all enemies 2 times. A double hitter is also very well appreciated for getting around various single hit defenses. Before attacking, places increased attack on this champion for 2 turns, so that's a self-buff as well. Ignores unkillable and shields. It doesn't ignore block damage, which is a little unfortunate, but ignoring shields is very nice as well, because shields are starting to come back into an arena meta as well. And each critical hit landed on the first hit increases the damage dealt on the second hit by 10%. So he can get an additional 30%, 40%, 50%, maybe even 100% if you're using him in Spider, extra damage. I actually want to try him out in Hard Spider and just see how well that second hit does, because I think that might be kind of fun. But he should do a bunch of extra damage, and that's going to be good. So he is going to be a good champion for doing damage. Overall, he's got a great kit. He's got a really fun kit. And then finally, activates Demon Breaker every 5th turn this champion takes. So basically, he gets a free activation of, it's the A1. So he'll get a free A1 every 5th turn as well. So very Thor-like as well. Like Thor gets, extra attack every time he does 12 single target attacks of some kind. So, yeah, he also cannot be critical hit by bosses, minions, and the Corrupted Alliance. Very, very good kit overall. I'm not going to say he's a must fuse because honestly, there's very few champions that become must fuses. I think we've had three, and that would be Newt, that would be Fabian, and that would be Armand's. Outside of that, every other one has been very, very good, but not quite a must. But he is definitely in the Thor category of Thor is a top 10 champion fusion of all time. And I think he's probably in the top 10, assuming he does reasonable-ish damage, which, as I've seen in some of the testing so far, he does. So definitely go for this guy if you can. One of the things that's kind of interesting for this is they have also offered this promo code for new players only. So that means, for example, if you use my link that I've got down below, you can get yourself an Ugo, you can get yourself a Rector Drath, and you can get yourself this dude for free. Now, some people are angry that Polarium is giving away cool things to new players. However, what I am looking at this is from a slightly different perspective here. The problem that they had with things like the Alice and the Monster Hunter events is that the fusion happened early. Players that started because of this new event couldn't get the fusion because you cannot do the fusion if you start within a week of the fusion, because you cannot do the tournaments because you get locked out of tournaments for about a full week of a starting account. I know when we started the free-to-play Hell Hades, we struggled to get the Mad Hatter stuff. I did actually manage to get 2 Dawn Colors on that account because I was able to do almost every event, as well as some of the tournaments once tournaments became available. But tournaments were not available to start with, so I could never have completed the fusion on a free-to-play account. So this allows new players to possibly actually get this particular champion, which means they can get all of the event champions. Now they have to still get lucky with everything else. And if they're spenders, they may have to pull some shards for some of the other things, but it gives them a shot, and it gives them one of these central characters in a special event. So you may like the fact that they are offering some of these for free. They may not. Here's the thing. There's an awful lot of really good champions they are offering for free for brand new players, but they get one. So it is not a matter of a champion player is going to get, they're going to get 2 Hanorok and Supreme Gallic and this dude and Monkey King. No, you get to pick one. So I think Supreme Gallic is still a slightly better pick, but I think that this is a good option. He's a very good champion. I think he will be very helpful for a lot of new accounts. So from that perspective, I don't mind that Polarium is offering free legendary codes, and I don't mind the fact that they're allowing people to pick because, for example, if somebody is going to use a no voids account for some strange reason, well, people play all kinds of games. People play void only accounts. Some people may want to play a non-void account. I could see that being an interesting option. Well, then this dude may be the best one available. Between him and Alice and Monkey King, I think there are 3 very good options for a non-void legendary. If you're going to go void, I think Supreme Gallic is the best option. 2 Hanorok is a very good champion. She has some very good niche uses, and unfortunately one of them is Clan Boss, which is part of why she might be a really good pick. But I think Supreme Gallic is a better pick overall if you can do it. But you know what? This guy's really good too. So I think this is a good option for new players. In fact, I think he might be a better overall pick than Alice, particularly because he's also a Force champion, and getting Force champions early can be very difficult. So you get a very good Force champion early. So, hey, if you want to start a new account and you want to use this code, go for it. It's absolutely amazing. Use the link down below, and it does help support me. But I don't think that this is something that is Polarium punishing existing players by not giving them free champions, other than the fact that it would be nice if they gave a few more free things to existing players. I think they need to work on that a little bit. We do have a free champion coming up. From what I've seen, that's not a very good champion, but we are getting some free champions, so there's some options as well. So let's get into the actual fusion planning so we can make sure that those of you who do not get this guy for free can make the fusion happen on your account. Here we go. Here is the calendar event, and they've done some good things right now. So Polarium has done the right thing with this here, We've got the spider tournament, which spider tournaments are always easy. You know, generally the gear dungeon events, not too bad. So we got that. We've got Ice Tholin. We've got Dragon here. And we've got the Fire Knight down here. So Fire Knight is going to be the last one. That makes some sense because Fire Knight, we just had a turn event for Fire Knight over CVC. So those should be fairly easy to do. So just mark your calendars for those. We've got the Classic Arena 1 and we've got Classic Arena 2. So we only have 2 Arena ones. Those are generally fairly easy to do. You just need to run, instead of 5 arena tournaments a day, you run 10 arena a day and win most of them. It's usually not too hard to do. I tend to push a little more Classic Arena when those are available whenever I can, but these are not the hardest ones to do, especially if you end up in Gold 4 or Gold 5, which a lot of you can get into pretty easily. Don't keep a particularly tough defense in, so you're staying near the bottom of those, and a lot of other people keep in a bad defense as well, so you can usually find some pretty easy fights. And, stick around and hit arena, so that'll be helpful as well. We have the Dungeon Diver events. Those I generally mark in red. Those are always minorly problematic, but this one here fully overlaps Spider, so that's great. It also overlaps champion training down here, so that is good to know. Gear, let's see, Dungeon Divers event 2, that is right here. That one looks like a skip if you can, but we'll talk about skipping later. To be fair, the only way to skip is to get the extra epic from the Summon Rush, so we'll talk about that in a minute. And then we have Dungeon Divers event 3 down here. That one is going to overlap with the end of the Dragon tournament and the beginning of the Fire Knight tournament, as well as a champion training event as well. So looking at things you do want to be careful of, we have champion training right here. Now that coincides with the Summon Rush. That's great. So you'll get a bunch of new champions and then you want to train them up. So champion training flows into that. Plus, there is some overlap with the first Dungeon Divers event, as well as there's a little bit of an overlap with the second Dungeon Divers event. But because you've got this weird little gap here, where as of Tuesday, you're only going to have the Ice Golem and the Dungeon Divers event, and Wednesday, the only event you're going to have other than gear enhancement is going to be Dungeon Divers as well. That's actually interesting. There's literally no tournaments over Wednesday to Thursday. Very kind of unusual. So I don't like Dungeon Divers events. I think they are very, very tough to do for most accounts unless you're running a ton of campaign. So if you can skip this Dungeon Diver event, I think it is actually worth going for this extra Summon Rush event. So now the Summon Rush here, this is going to be the pull sacreds or points. So generally, the way this tends to work is this is going to be usually around 1,500 points, which is 6 sacreds. There we go. That's kind of a 6. And then the Summon Rush here is usually going to be 10 or 11 sacreds. So if you've got 10 or 11 sacreds, go get this guy. Generally, especially for a non-void epic, it'll generally be about 2,500 points. Actually, what 2,500 points? It'll be about 5,000 points, which is where 10,000 or 11. So it'd be 5,000 to 5,500 usually for this champion. So that's where the 10 or 11 comes in versus 3,000 for the Summon Rush here. So that's going to be 6. Generally, your breakdown is going to be, it is 500 for sacreds. I want to say it's like 200-ish for primals. I don't actually remember the exact number for primals. Maybe 220, maybe 200, maybe 180. Voids are 120, regular ancients are 20, and then it is 1 point for your mystery shards. Now this is a classic Summon Rush, which is great because Summon Rush actually means that your mystery shards are going to be the most valuable. So this is a good time to make sure you have stocked up on mystery shards. And if you don't have enough sacreds to do it, you're going to be pulling a ton of mystery shards. Fortunately, you can feed them champions pretty easily now, so it's not that hard to actually use a bunch of the shards as well. It's a lot easier than it used to be. And generally what I'll do is I'll go in, summon 10, hit escape to kick myself back to the Bastion and go right back in and do it again. And you can get yourself out pretty quickly on the PC. It's unfortunately a little harder to skip on the phone. So But this summon rush should be very attainable with the 6 sacreds and the 10 to 11 sacreds here. So hopefully this is not going to be a really, really rough fusion from that end. If it's going to be rough, we're going to find that the points and things like the spider are going to be higher, the dungeon divers are going to be higher, and so far they did not look like they have raised the points on these too much, so that is good. And then finally, the other ones that we have that are always a bit of a pain for people are the gear enhancement events. So we got gear enhancements right here. We've got 3 gear enhancements. We've got 3 dungeon divers. Generally, if you are low on silver and or struggle with dungeon divers events, you're going to want to skip, and we'll mark with a nice white right here. So ones I would think about skipping is I would think about skipping this dungeon divers event. I would think about skipping one of the gear enhancement events, or maybe 2 of them. So I'll underline all of those, maybe even 3 of them. But to be fair, doing a gear enhancement event is a good thing for your account. It is a good idea to roll a lot of your gear up to +8 or +12 if you have not done that already, because that generally means you have a better idea of what gear is actually good on your account. Sometimes you can take a piece of gear that says, oh, that's got speed on it, it might be good, but you roll and you miss speed in every single roll onto a +12. Well, it's now trash, especially if it rolled something particularly bad. So go fetch that and get that, get some gear and improve your account. Some people do want to skip the summon rush. Well, it looks like you can't skip the summon rush at all, because you do need the summon rush to get the extra epic if you want to be able to skip other events. That said, it does mean you could skip the champion chase event. But the champion chase event is going to be 2x ancients. Again, fear my handwriting. So 2x ancients is usually a great time to pull. If you have 40 to 50 ancients, that will generally get the job done for you. There are also so many other ways to get the champion chase done with previous fusions. You could certainly do it by pulling champions from mystery shards and other stuff as well. There's any way you get a champion will allow you to get that champion chase done. So it's not the hardest thing to do, especially if you are building champions up. Like, for example, on my free to play, I'm actually getting near where I might be able to get Quintus. I am getting near where I might be able to get Mithrala, so I might actually get a Mithrala and a Quintus, as well as possibly pulling my Ishiyama on that event, and then I may not even need to pull shards. Although on my free to play, 2x Ancients is a great time to pull for an early game account anyway, so you should be saving up all your Ancients for that event if you can. So, if you're doing at least the top end of Ultra Nightmare daily, which hopefully you are, and if not, that get working on that, you should be able to have 40 to 50 Ancients if you're not pulling them anywhere other than during a 2x event for this fusion event. So for the most part, this fusion looks fairly easy. Again, we do have another champion training event there as well, but again, that actually falls in with the champion chase, so it's a great time for that. It does overlap one of the dungeon divers events, so that is nice as well. Same with Dragon, does overlap one of the dungeon divers events here. I think the only time that I think is absolutely amazingly bad for this event is be aware of this dungeon divers event. So if you are not going for the epic and you're going to be going for all of the rares, just be aware that this dungeon diver exists and make sure you don't miss it. So probably the best way to make sure you don't miss it is do not start the Ice Golem tournament before Monday the 9th, so that with this Dungeon Divers event is live when you start the Ice Golem tournament, or at least when you start it majorly by investing in, throwing energy in Ice Golem. Certainly it doesn't hurt to throw a couple passive energy in Ice Golem overnight, for example, on Sunday, instead. But just be aware of that so that you don't miss that Dungeon Divers event. Overall, assuming the points are not unreasonable, this fusion doesn't look too bad, other than the big problem you're always going to have with these type of fusions is if you miss a rare, you then have to pull one out of shards, or you have to get the epic. So if you're not going to be able to get the epic, you need to make sure you are on top of every event. and I can't stress that enough. That's why I've been repeating it several times. So make sure you be on top of all the events. Now, there's one tool I actually want to kind of highlight for that. So let's hop over to the web and go. I'm going to show you a tool that I hopefully can actually help you make sure that you make this Fusion event. So this is the Fusion calendar on Fastidius.gg. Now, Fastidius, a friend of mine, good dude, has built this for planning for the Fusion. Now, you'll see he hasn't updated the Fusion calendar yet, but to be fair, the Fusion calendar dropped less than an hour ago as of recording this video, so it just give him a little bit of time to get this up to date. But once he has this up to date, you can log in and save your progress. So you can actually mark, for example, the Dragon Tournament as in progress or finished, and then you can mark if you've got the particular fragments for the Fragment Fusion. Now, once we actually have the right fusion up here, instead of a Fragment Fusion, we are going to actually see collecting the various champions. So it will actually track how many of the epics you can fuse, how many of the rares you can fuse. Should be very easy to track as well. If there are any ways to win champions from any first place tournaments as well, which I do not believe there are. In fact, there are not. So that's not going to be a case as well. That's generally more of a Fragment Fusion thing anyway. But this will kind of help you. It's also nice because this actually gives you a tracking on what of the dungeons are available. So this actually gives you an issue of, hey, okay, here is the Spirit Dungeon, here is the Force Dungeon, here is the Magic Dungeon, and here's the Void Dungeon. So you can see what days these are. And this is the reset day. So if those of us in the US, for example, where the reset happens at like 7 p.m. for me the night beforehand, obviously, I consider Saturday the void day instead of Sunday because that's kind of when it starts. But that's generally how Polarium sees it because they're on GMT or UTC time for the servers. So this is as of midnight Greenwich Mean Time, aka kind of where London is without daylight savings. So just keep that in mind, but this is a great tool for tracking so that you can make sure that you don't miss any events. You can see when events end. And yeah, there's a little bit of rollover off and on when these things happen because while the days themselves for the dungeons are marked at reset, oftentimes the events start oftentimes closer to 7 a.m. or around noon time, Greenwich Mean Time, than they do closer to the midnight time. So there might be a little bit of displacement when these things start and when these things end, but as long as you are on top of it, as long as you are planning for it, and as long as you pay attention to both your in-game events and something like this, you should be able to make this fusion. This fusion should be absolutely easy. So I will leave a link to this down in the description below. Go check that out. It's an amazing tool, and hopefully it can get you the Tholin fusion. So finally, to wrap this up, just I will be trying to chronicle a little bit of how I'm doing on this on the free-to-play. It will be a little difficult because between my editor and when I record videos, sometimes there's a bit of a delay on that. So you might see some of the stuff behind just a bit. But overall, on my free-to-play here, as we're talking about, I've got 51 ancient shards. I've actually pulled a few during CVC just to take a chance on a nice 10x. Nothing major. I pulled 3 of them for my dailies. It wasn't a big deal. And again, I actually saw that I had 50-ish, so I felt safe in doing it. Plus, I've got 15 sacred shards here. Plus, I have over 1,000 mystery shards. I will not have a problem doing this fusion on my free-to-play. I have also managed to earn a ton of the gems up there as well. So, yeah, I've been able to do fairly well on this account in saving. I have been in mostly save and hibernation mode. I have actually not done a lot of the other tournaments that were available, and unless they made some sense. So I certainly dove some extra energy into Fire Knight recently to get some extra silver. I do need to continue to do a gear cleanse, but you can see I've actually got 30 million silver here so far. And if we go into my gear as well, I still have 1,490. I'm fairly sure I can trim about 200 pieces out of this account fairly easily, just with going and grabbing some of the worst stuff and kicking it to the curb. So, and it's a good position to be in. And it just means I've been on top of where I wanted to be on this free-to-play account. There's been kind of slow and painful progress at times because I've not been making a lot of progress in certain areas. Yes, but This is a guaranteed progression event for this account. I'm going to get Tholin. Tholin's going to be useful in this account. I'm going to get other champions as well because I will be pulling probably 10 to 12 Sacreds. I will be pulling a bunch of Ancients on a 2x Ancients. Generally, those are the big progression markers for an account. And when you can do that while also getting a guaranteed legendary, well, that is a great way to do a free-to-play account. That is a great way to do any account, is plan on doing these fusions. And what will happen is you will get these fusion champions. Even if they're not great fusion champions, you will find that they were a good time to progress your account, because that's also when you're pulling other champions from shards more often than not. It's often when you are forced to focus on building your account or running dungeons that may help you get the gear to help build out your account. So I think the fusions are definitely worth doing in general, even for champions that are just kind of okay. But at the same time, if you can't make sure to do back-to-back fusions, well, save up and make sure that you're doing the best fusions that you can. And generally, you're not going to get two absolute banger fusions back-to-back, so don't worry too much about it. Overall, play the way you want to play, have fun, but hopefully you can actually make this fusion, because I think he's going to be great for a lot of you guys. So let me know down below. Do you think this fusion is going to be easy to do? Are you going for this fusion? Are you still kind of torn, not sure if you want to do it? What do you think of the Bastion here? I think it's kind of cool looking. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate all the love and support you guys give me, and it's right back at you. You guys are absolutely amazing. Hope you are having a wonderful day and having fun in Raid Shadow Legends. And until the next video, I am Bront.